Have you ever wondered why a man never forgets the woman who left without explanation? No shouting, no tears, no final plea. She simply turned and walked into the silence, and somehow that silence haunts him more than any goodbye ever could. She didn't just leave, she vanished with a kind of sovereign grace that said, "I do not beg to be chosen." And that unspoken declaration cut through the veil of his unconscious, bypassing ego, bypassing pride, and slicing directly into the shadow he thought he had buried long ago. To the untrained eye, she was just a woman who walked away, but to the archetypal masculine psyche, she became the wound he could not name. A woman like her embodies the anima in its most evolved form, mysterious, untouchable, spiritually whole. She is not cruel, but she is free, and that freedom is the very thing he cannot possess. Jung wrote that every man carries within him the image of the eternal woman, the anima, not as she is, but as he imagines her to be. And when she leaves, not with bitterness, but with soulful detachment, she becomes the mirror to that sacred inner projection. She reminds him of something ancient and lost, the mother he yearned for, the lover he never truly saw, the soul he abandoned in favor of egoic conquest. You may think silence is weakness. You may think leaving without closure is avoidance. But no, in truth, it is the final lesson, the most powerful initiation. It says, "I am not responsible for healing what you refuse to face." And that sentence, though never spoken aloud, echoes in the corridors of his mind long after her footsteps have faded. The woman who leaves without a word is not indifferent. She is awake. She has done the inner work. She has seen the pattern and refused to dance with it again. She does not scream because she does not need to be heard. Her presence has already said everything her words never needed to, and that, more than anything, is what makes her unforgettable. He returns again and again, not because he loves her, but because he cannot understand her departure. His ego searches for an explanation, a story that would make him the victim of her vanishing act. But deep down, in the buried layers of psyche where persona and shadow battle, he knows. She left because she saw through me. She saw the mask. She saw the boy in a man's armor. She saw the wound pretending to be a warrior. And when a woman sees you like that, sees you truly, and still doesn't demand, still doesn't chase, still doesn't collapse into her need for closure, it changes a man. Or it breaks him. This is not the story of heartbreak, it's the story of reckoning. To the uninitiated man, love is possession, it's validation, it's a mirror to his worth. But to the woman who walked away without a word, love is presence, and when that presence is no longer met with reverence, it is withdrawn, quietly, elegantly, entirely. She does not leave to punish, she leaves to protect her soul. She leaves because she has remembered who she is, and no story, no chemistry, no psychological tie can bind her once she has returned to herself. You see, when she walked away, she didn't disappear, she reclaimed. Every fragment she gave, every compromise she made, every silent tolerance she endured, she called it all back to her body like sacred prayer beads from an altar that no longer served her. And while he still scrolls her photos in the dark, still tries to decode her mystery through other women, she is not watching, she is not waiting, she is not wondering. She has stepped beyond the veil of needing to be understood by someone who never truly saw her. And you, if you are that woman, or if you are becoming her, understand this. His inability to forget you is not a curse you must bear. It is a reflection of your power. Because true power doesn't beg. It withdraws. It doesn't scream. It silences. And it doesn't break things to prove a point. It vanishes to protect its essence. He cannot forget you, not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. And wholeness, when encountered briefly and then lost, becomes an ache that the fragmented soul can never fully escape. So when you feel doubt creep in, when you wonder if your silence was too much, if your leaving was too sudden, if your worth will ever be recognized, remember this. A woman who walks away without a word speaks in a language the masculine psyche can't unhear. He searches for her in every gaze that lingers too long, in every conversation that almost touches the soul, in every night when the room is too quiet to distract from the echo of her absence. But what he doesn't realize is that he's not looking for her. He's looking for the part of himself she awakened. Because she wasn't just a woman, she was the key to a door he had kept locked his entire life. Jung teaches us that the soul does not evolve through comfort. It evolves through confrontation, the kind that comes not with violence, but with reflection. And her departure wasn't abandonment. It was confrontation by silence. Her silence spoke directly to the unconscious, and that is what lingers. She saw him, yes, but more than that, she refused to participate in his illusions. She refused to reflect back the version of himself he was so desperately clinging to. She knew that what he called love was often attachment, control, avoidance dressed as desire. And she did not come to be another actress in his inner drama. She came as a mirror. And when he broke the mirror, she did not pick up the shards. This is the essence of the feminine in its highest form, the initiatrix. She who does not shout, but dismantles. She who does not chase, but transcends. She who, through presence alone, holds up the truth like a candle in a pitch-black corridor. And when she leaves, he's left alone in that dark corridor. Not because she cursed him, but because she trusted him to find his own light. That's the unbearable part. You see, some women leave chaos in their wake. Others leave clarity. The woman who walked away without a word was not chaotic. She was clear. So clear, in fact, that her absence became the only thing that made sense in the distorted theater of his life. He'll try to fill the void she left with distractions, louder women, louder games, louder performances. But the silence she left behind doesn't scream. It waits. It teaches. And in that waiting, he begins to meet himself, the real self, the self behind the conquest, behind the dominance, behind the charming facade that once made him feel in control. There is a kind of woman whose energy makes you look inward, not because she demands it, but because being around her makes anything less than truth unbearable. That's what he lost. And perhaps he'll never say it. Perhaps his pride, his great towering ego, will never allow him to admit what she meant, what she shook awake in him. But Jung reminds us, the shadow, once glimpsed, cannot be unseen. He saw something in her that wasn't just feminine beauty, it was divine indifference, the kind that doesn't punish or pout, but radiates a quiet certainty. I am not here to be chosen. I am here to choose. And when a woman knows that, truly knows it in her bones, a man will feel her absence like hunger in the soul. You, the woman listening, the woman wondering if leaving quietly meant weakness, hear this. You were never weak. You were wise. Leaving without a word doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to protect what was left of you. It means you cared more about peace than punishment. And it means you knew that explaining your worth to someone determined not to see it is the slowest form of spiritual death. So you let him sit in the silence, and that silence became the only place where he could finally hear the truth. You see, men are not broken by heartbreak.
They are broken by confrontation with their shadow, and the woman who walks away without a word is often the one who forces him to face it, not through cruelty, but through absence. And absence, when tied to the feminine archetype, becomes initiation. He can date 100 women after her. He can travel the world, earn the applause, win the game. But somewhere, in the quieter corners of his mind, she will still be walking away, again and again. A vision of grace, of closure he'll never get, of love that never begged to be loved back. And perhaps that's the deepest secret. The woman he cannot forget is not the one who made him feel adored. It's the one who made him aware.
A man may touch countless bodies, but only once in a lifetime does he brush against a woman who reaches beneath the flesh and into the abyss, who whispers into his shadow rather than his ear. The woman who walked away without a word did just that, not by design, but by essence. She didn't try to awaken him. She simply refused to stay asleep for him. And in that refusal, he saw her power. Not the seductive kind, not the performative allure, but the rarest kind. The spiritual authority of a woman who knows her worth and doesn't use it to bargain. She wasn't interested in convincing him. She wasn't interested in taming him, fixing him, or softening the jagged edges of his ego. She saw his jagged edges and stepped back, not because she feared them, but because she understood them. This is what Jung pointed to when he spoke of the feminine as both healer and destroyer. She is medicine, but not always sweet. Sometimes her medicine is departure. Sometimes the deepest healing she offers is to remove herself entirely, allowing the wound to breathe without herself. And how that wounds him. You see, his mind still returns to her, but not out of love, out of hunger for resolution, out of a longing to be seen the way she saw him, even if that seeing cost him his illusions. She saw the child behind the man, the tremble behind the roar, the confusion beneath the charm. And when she saw all that and still left, it shattered something. Because he always believed love would stay, that love meant endurance, not boundaries, that the good woman was the one who understood his pain and absorbed it. But she was not a sponge. She was a storm, a quiet one, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that clears the land without warning. And now he walks through that land, alone. Yes, he tries to forget. He calls her difficult, says she was cold. He says she left too easily. But that's not the truth, and somewhere inside he knows it. The truth is, he lost her long before she left. He lost her the moment he mistook her silence for surrender, her softness for weakness, her distance for punishment. But silence is a language, and she spoke it fluently. Her silence said, "You will not drag me into your chaos." Her silence said, "I will not burn myself to keep your ego warm." Her silence said, "I love myself more than I need your attention." And that, above all, is why he cannot forget her, because no one ever loved themselves in front of him like that before. He was used to devotion that bent, sacrifice that bled. He was used to women who mistook pain for connection. But she did none of that. She came whole and left whole. That wholeness disorients a man who has only known women through the lens of need. She needed nothing, and nothingness has a strange way of echoing. That is what he carries now. Not just the memory of her touch or the scent she left on his pillows. He carries the echo, the vast, resounding absence of a woman who chose herself. It is easy to forget the ones who gave everything. The psyche absorbs that kind of love quickly, even greedily. But the woman who gives nothing unnecessary, who guards her energy like sacred fire, she cannot be absorbed. She becomes imprinted. This is what Jung described as the anima, as both muse and tormentor. She is not yours to own.
She belongs to the inner world. And when a man encounters that in physical form, even briefly, it rearranges him. No, he may not change outwardly. He may not suddenly become enlightened, but somewhere a fracture forms, a crack in the marble. And through that crack, light or darkness may pour. That part is up to him. But she has already chosen. She will not be the woman who explains herself to someone committed to misunderstanding. She will not be the woman who trades her intuition for validation. She will not be the woman who waits for him to awaken before she starts living. She is already gone. And that is why he cannot forget her, because when she walked away, she didn't take his heart. She took his fantasy, the illusion that he could be careless with the sacred and still be adored for it. She made him feel real, not adored, not worshipped, seen. And when a woman sees you and still walks away, you don't forget her. You ache for her, long after you've forgotten her name.
He may stand in the arms of another, smile for photos, whisper promises into new ears, but a part of him will always be searching for the woman who walked away without a word. Not to find her, but to understand her. To understand how she could look into the depths of him, see the storms brewing behind his eyes, and still choose herself. This is the unbearable mystery, that she did not leave because she stopped caring. She left because she cared more for her own becoming. That is what his ego cannot accept. Because in his world, women leave when they're angry, when they're betrayed, when they're defeated, not when they're awakened. But she left when the scales tipped too far, when her soul whispered, "You've learned enough here. Now go." She didn't need closure. She was the closure. This is the paradox that torments him, that while he was busy trying to test her limits, she was quietly mapping her exit, not with cruelty, but with grace. Grace that flows from deep inner clarity. Grace that doesn't need to scream to be heard. And you, if you are a woman who walked away, or a woman standing on that edge now, understand this. He may never thank you. He may never say your name without bitterness. He may reduce your essence to a story that makes him feel like the hero. Let him. Because you did not walk away to be remembered. You walked away to remember yourself. Jung taught us that individuation, the true path of becoming, requires a death of the false self. And sometimes we are forced to play the role of deathbringer, not with blades, but with boundaries, not with violence, but with absence. She became his reckoning, not because she wanted revenge, but because her very nature revealed the truth, and truth has never been gentle with illusions. He wanted a woman to stay and tame his chaos. She wanted a man who didn't need to be tamed. He wanted reassurance, compliance, devotion. She wanted presence, depth, and self-awareness. The moment she realized he could not meet her there, not truly, she didn't ask again. She didn't protest. She just turned toward the path that didn't require her to shrink. And this is what many men don't understand. Some women don't leave to be chased. Some women leave because chasing themselves is finally more fulfilling than chasing him. She once craved his attention. Now she cultivates her peace. He once thrilled her nervous system. Now she values her nervous system's calm. And in this shift, she becomes untouchable, not in the way that avoids love, but in the way that refuses to suffer for it. That's what he'll never quite be able to name. That feeling, not of loss, but of disorientation.
the disorientation of no longer being her center, the loss of a gravitational pull he assumed would always bend to his orbit. But she is not a planet. She is the force behind the cosmos he never studied. And she doesn't revolve around anything anymore. Let him miss you. Let him linger. Let him bury his confusion beneath distractions and fleeting flings. You owe no one the sacrifice of your becoming. You owe no one the gift of your truth, especially if they confuse your soul's evolution with betrayal. Her walking away was not betrayal. It was initiation, for both of them. For her, it marked the death of her people-pleasing self. For him, it was the beginning of a long night with the shadow he spent years avoiding. Because in truth, he doesn't want her back. He wants to feel again what he felt through her. But that feeling was never hers to give. It was his soul stirring in her presence, his reflection trembling in her stillness. And now that stillness is gone. That is the exile. He could have had her body, he could have had her presence, but he wanted possession more than partnership. And now he is left with memory and the echo of a woman who needed no witness to validate her departure. He cannot forget her, because she was the lesson he didn't know he needed. And some lessons don't arrive with words. They arrive, walk through you like fire, and vanish.
And so, as the years pass and the noise of the world continues to dull his senses, one thing remains vivid: her silence. Not just the silence of her absence, but the silence of her strength. That unspoken power she carried, not in her voice, but in her withdrawal. The kind of silence that doesn't just haunt, it humbles. He may convince himself that he's moved on, that the ache has faded, that new love has filled the space she left behind. But those are surface truths, comforts, distractions, because the soul remembers what the ego tries to erase. And somewhere in the deepest corridors of his psyche, she still stands, not with open arms, but with closed eyes, facing the horizon, unreachable. This is not bitterness. This is the natural consequence of a soul meeting its mirror and not recognizing it until it's gone. Carl Jung spoke often of the inner marriage, this sacred union between the masculine and the feminine within. He knew that without integrating both sides of the psyche, no person can be whole. The woman who left without a word was not meant to be his possession. She was meant to be his invitation, an invitation to begin that journey, the inner one, the terrifying one, the one without applause or witnesses. But he mistook the sacred for the familiar. He touched the divine, then tried to contain it. And when it slipped through his fingers, as all sacred things do when they're not respected, he was left with the dust of his own unpreparedness. He tells himself she changed, that she became distant, that she wanted too much. But the truth is, she simply returned to herself. She became what she always was beneath the compromise: whole. And once a woman tastes her own wholeness, no man, no matter how charming, can make her forget it. That's what he underestimated. He thought he could play the same games, disappear and return, push and pull, and she would still be there, waiting, hoping, bending. But this was not a woman who worshipped potential. She loved in the present. And when the present was filled with avoidance, ego, and half-truths, she made no scene. She just closed the door that he left open too long. And that door will not open again. Not because she hates him, but because she loves herself more than she fears being alone. She knows now that peace is not found in another's arms. It's found in the mirror, when the soul is no longer fragmented by the need to be chosen. You, if you have been this woman, or if you are becoming her, know this. Your silence is your signature. It marks the point where your boundaries became louder than your pain, where your absence spoke more than your tears ever could, where you stopped trying to make him see and started seeing yourself. Let the world misunderstand you. Let him tell the story that makes him feel better. That's fine. You are no longer in need of their approval. You are no longer performing for redemption. You are no longer negotiating your worth for connection. You are no longer waiting to be loved in the way you already love yourself. He cannot forget you because your leaving wasn't about him. It was about you stepping into the sacred role of the initiated feminine, the woman who does not beg, who does not explain, who does not lower her voice to be heard. She simply is. And in her being, she undoes every illusion he has built around what love should feel like. She does not teach through words. She teaches through absence. And in that absence, the real question is not why he cannot forget her. The real question is why she ever tried to be remembered in the first place. But now she knows. And now she's free. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.